So I hope you guys enjoy today as well. You know, this is one of my favorite times of year. At least I thought it was going to cool off, and it kind of did a little bit over the week. And I love this. You're just kind of getting away from the heat of summer. And then football is back, right? Everybody watch a little ball yesterday? Yeah, that was good, right? Yeah. Go, yeah. Yeah. So, I was going to share some things with you. So, first off, I know the other Wednesday night, Jay asked it, and I just said, Jay, I can't talk about this now. But he said, how did you even become a Florida fan? How did that happen? I'm not from Florida. I've only been to the state once. And I'll just tell you, this is really nothing to do with the sermon at all. Whenever I was a kid, as you learned a few weeks ago, I learned very early that football is a tough, mean sport, right? And I was a little kid. I was really little, and my family was my uncles and my granddad. They were sitting around watching a football game. It was Tennessee. I don't know, in my mind, I just thought I'm a Tennessee fan, right? I mean, like, it's what you should be. And there was this player that just, drilled this Tennessee player. And the Tennessee player had to be carted off on a thing, and I was like, wow, that's... And I asked my grandfather, I said, who's that? What team is that? And he said, well, that's the Gators. And I said, oh, okay, And then I said, what are they doing in the stands? They were all doing this. Like, what are they doing? He's like, well, that's the Gator Chomp. And I was like, oh, okay. What does Tennessee do? He's like, well, they don't do nothing. I was like, oh, okay. I was really trying to be a Tennessee fan. And then there was Steve Spurrier on the sideline. I said, who is that guy? Because he was going crazy, breaking his clip, board, throwing his visor. He said, well, that's the old ball coach. That's what they call him. And I said, oh, what do they call the Tennessee coach? He said, just, whatever, coach. It's like, man, this is, And I thought the name Gators sounded really cool. And, this stayed with me. I had thought about it. And it was like a day or two later, my grandfather is not even thinking about the game, right? But I go up to him and I said, hey, because in my mind, I'm internally struggling in my little kid mind. And I said, what is a volunteer? What exactly is that? And he's trying to explain it, and I kind of got it, but I kind of didn't. And it just so happened that weekend we went to the hospital to visit someone. And my grandfather, there was this old lady, and she had on like a striped smock. And my grandfather was like, hey, you was asking me earlier what a volunteer is. That's a volunteer. And I was like, an alligator will eat her alive. I was like, nope, Gators. That's my team. That's who I like. That's how I became a Florida fan. I've told you all that, I used to take football so seriously, way more seriously than I, should have. And I'm going to tell you about a time because it really applies to our sermon. And me and Amanda once went to the Johnson City Mall. There's a store in the mall called Champs. And I don't think they do it now, but it used to in the 2000s. They would have tons of T-shirts and stuff, and you could go in there, and they always had a deal. You could buy two for $30 or something. And I only went to the mall for that purpose. I go to Champs, and the cool thing about it is they had every team. They had every team. They had Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, Vanderbilt, whoever. And I go in and I'm looking, and I'm getting a little upset. I'm like, where's the Florida shirts? And I go up to the counter and I ask the guy, I'm like, dude, where's the Florida stuff? He was like, okay, Florida stuff will be in on this day. I'm like, okay, what's your problem? He said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He said, you're like the 100th person that's came in here asking me about Florida stuff. I'm like, what? We're in Tennessee. You know that, right? And he's like, I know. He's like, Florida is our number one selling team. Alabama's 2, Tennessee's 3rd. And I was like, I don't like that. That's part of the benefit of liking a team that's not here. You have plenty of merchandise. Nobody wants it, But it hit me. This is back when Florida was winning national championships and everything's good. And being a Florida fan, that was really nice. And we call those bandwagon fans, right? Fans that just jump from team to team to team. And we may disagree on what teams that we like, but if you're a diehard, loyal fan of your team, none of us like the bandwagon fans, right? And anyway, I think that stuck in my craw because me and Amanda are walking around the mall, and there's this guy had on a Florida something, and this guy has on a Florida something, a Florida shirt, and he's like, hey, yeah, Florida. And I went, what? And he's like, Florida, your shirt. I said, what? What are you saying to me? Did you literally just say, yeah, Florida? And he's like, yeah. I said, what do we say? We're Gator fans. What do we say? We have a greeting. What do we say? And I said, wait a minute now, wait. Because you may be part of the problem here why I'm not able to buy my shirts. And I was like, hang on a minute. I asked him questions. I said, who's quarterback? It's Tebow, right. Who was the quarterback last, year? I said, you should know, man. He played for four years. Won a national championship. Oh, what's his name? I was so aggravated. I remember Amanda's like, honey, let's go. It's fine. It's okay, Oh, but I got so irritated. But that's pretty common, right? We have in sports, we have people who are like me or like David. We pick a team, and that's our team. Ain't nothing taking us away from like that. We may call them like diehard fans or loyal fans, but for our sake today, we're going to call them followers. They are true followers. And then we have we have folks like this guy. They just kind of jump from team to team. It's whoever's winning, whoever's team, whoever it's easy to be a fan of for that year or that week, right? And they don't really have a whole lot of loyalty to any team. They just enjoy being a fan, and they want to be a fan of a winning team. Okay? So we're going to see how this applies to a time in the Bible, and we're going to be in John chapter 6. In John 6:2, it says, a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Now, if you don't know, this is the beginning of the account where Jesus feeds 5,000 folks. He actually feeds way more than that. The 5,000 only applies to the men. That was the only ones that they had, counted. So as the crowd is, coming, here comes all these people, thousands and thousands. The disciples are a little panicked because they're like, hey, it's our responsibility to feed all of these folks, and we don't have anything, right? So Jesus says, hey, it's fine. Just get everybody gathered up here, set them, down, and we're going to handle it. And then there's this boy, and he has a couple loaves of bread and a couple of fish, and Jesus takes it, and he gives thanks for it, and then he tells the disciples, start handing this out. And they're like, whoa, Jesus, this is going to feed like 4 of them. There's thousands here. Just hand it out. It's fine, right? And he starts handing them out, and it never runs out. As they hand out the food, as I picture it, as they reach into the basket, they're like, there's 1 fish, there's 2, we're out. Wait, there's 3. Wait, there's 4. Wait, and it just keeps going, right? And they feed them all. They actually feed them so much, everybody's stuffed, and then they have baskets left over that they, take and give to the poor or the hungry or whoever. Now, what a miracle, right? That's a miracle. That's a miraculous thing. It's what a lot of these people would call a sign. And in verse 14, it says that after the people saw the sign Jesus had performed, they began to say, surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world. Most of these people are the bandwagon fans. They are the bandwagon Bandwagon, fans. Listen to this. Let's go back to our first verse that we, read. And Jesus is even going to tear this apart. But it says, the great crowd of people followed him because he's the Son of God. No, that ain't what it says. No, these people followed him because they love him so much. No, they followed him because they saw the signs he had performed. They were following him because of the miracles and the healings. Now, Jesus is going to go even deeper. So, like, going back to our football thing, I'm a fan of this team because they're winning, or something like that. So, after Jesus feeds all of these people, he does what he often does. He kind of retreats. He goes, maybe prays, and then it says he takes a little walk. Happens to be on water, but he takes a walk. And then we pick back up in verse 25, right? Listen to what that it says. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, when did you get here? They've been looking for him, right? And Jesus says, I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs that I performed, but because you ate the loaves and you had your fill. In other words, he said, it ain't even about the miracles. You're looking for me because you benefited from the last time you saw me. You got your stomach full, and you're wanting that again. He's kind of calling them out. And he says, do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval. So Jesus sees into their heart, and he's kind of calling them out here. He knows they're not followers. They are just fans. They are all about how this can benefit them. To put it simply, they're hungry. They want food again. Real food, not the spiritual food Jesus is telling them. No. They want real food. It's all about what they can benefit from here. Even when it says they were there to see the signs, it wasn't even just to see it. It was to experience it. I want to be healed. I want to be fed. I want this. I want this. It's about what Jesus could give them. And Jesus really does try to convert these folks into followers. And he talks about this spiritual food, and he says that needs to be your focus, right? Just like he has said in the past, like, don't worry about the other stuff. God takes care of the birds and everything. He will take care of you. Okay? But let's really focus on this spiritual food. But listen to what they ask. And here is where you can see they really don't believe he is the Messiah. It says, then they asked him, what must we do to do the works that God requires? And Jesus says the work of God is this, to believe in the one that he has sent. He's like, look, it's simple. Just believe. You don't have to do anything crazy. Just believe. And they say, okay. So in verse 30, it says, so they asked him, what sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. What sign? They want a sign. Didn't they just get a sign? Weren't they just fed in a miraculous way? What do you mean you want a sign? And then listen to how that they're acting here. They say, well, we need a sign. Why don't you do a miracle? I don't know. Our ancestors got bread out of heaven. Maybe you could do that. They still want their food. They are still trying to place their order with Christ for their food. And Jesus calls them out on that. And for the next 38 verses, Jesus tries reasoning with them. He talks with them about the spiritual food and why their priorities are wrong. And listen to how that it ends. In John 6, verse 66, it says, "From this time, many of the disciples turned back, and they no longer followed him." That's sad. But that's how a bandwagon fan works. I didn't get what I wanted, I'm out. Things didn't go the way I wanted it, I'm out. I didn't get my free, meal, I'm out. Right? It's the same thing with our sports, teams. You didn't win, I'm out. Didn't make it into the championship, I'm out. Right? That's the way it goes. But on the flip side, we see some real followers, some diehards, the loyals here. Because in the very next verse, listen to what Jesus says, and I feel like you can almost hear the heartbreak of watching these people walk away. Because this is the very next verse. You picture thousands of people. They are just like, okay, guys, give up. We're not going to get our meal. We're going to have to leave. Everybody's leaving. And this is what Jesus says. You don't want to leave too, do you? Jesus asked the 12. That's what he says to them. He turns to his 12. Are you leaving too? I hope you don't. But are you going to leave, too? And then listen to what Peter says. Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and to know that you are the Holy One of God. I love that. It's like Peter here, it says, what, are we going to leave? Where in the world would we go? You are the one. I remember it reminded me of, there was somebody that asked Riley once, who's your favorite team? And Riley gave him a look like, what? What do you mean, who's my favorite team? There is only one option. This is it. This is, no, there isn't. There is only one team to like. Right? She acted like they were nuts. And that's what Peter's doing. No, Lord, where would I go? There is no other Messiah. There is no other Son of God. You are the one. There is no other option. And it's during these conversations that he has with the fans, he even tells them, no one goes to the Father except through me. He's actually telling them exactly what Peter's saying. There is no other option. Satan will make you think that there is, but there isn't. There is no other choice. If you want to go to, heaven, if you want eternal life, Jesus is the one and only way. There are no other roads. There are no other paths. So what group do you think you would have been on in that day in John chapter 6? Do you think you'd been one of the fans who would have deserted? Church and Jesus are two totally different, things. But, I'm going to tell you something. The word commitment is really losing its hold on, people. I see it all the time. I know even in sports in, high school, kids just quit. There's just no commitment. I know even watching the football games this, week, something a little different. I don't know if you picked up on this. Is they'd talk about a player and they'd say, yep, here's this player, Cameron, and he transferred from Notre Dame by way of Nebraska and started at Tennessee. And you're like, my gosh, there's no loyalty. There's no commitment. And I see it in church. I'll be honest, even when people join the church, I think that's a great thing, but at the same time, I always worry about, that, because I'm going to tell you what most people mean when they commit to the church or when they commit to a lot of things. They mean, I'm committed here as long as things go the way I want, right? Now, if Preston gets up and he gives a message and it hurts my feelings, I'm gone, right? Or if this doesn't happen the way I want, I may be out. I hope that's not a reflection of how we do things within our faith and our relationship with, God. But I want you to kind of imagine that. Where would you have fallen on that day? Would you have been one of the deserters, or would you have been like how that Peter was? Even if he wasn't happy, but like, where else am I going to go? This is it. This is the guy. This is the only team, right? Maybe think about that throughout the week. It's a serious thing. And I'll be clear, because I said that Jesus is the only option. He's the only option to heaven, okay? There are two options. You can follow Christ or not, okay? But that's the only two. Some people would say, I wasn't really I don't know that I'd be a deserter, but I don't know if I'd be Peter. I'd be somewhere in the middle. You're a deserter, right? Well, no. I mean, I would have wanted, I would have been kind of close to, no, you are just a fan. There is no middle ground. There is no fence to like ride. There's no gray area. That's one of the greatest tricks that Satan has pulled. He makes people think that there's this middle ground that you can be in. But the Bible is very black and white. And this is what I always say. If somebody says, I don't know, Preston, I think there is. Okay, so the people who are unsaved, they go to hell. The people that are saved, they go to heaven. Where does the people in the middle go? I mean, if there truly is a middle ground, where are they going? I don't, because I've just missed that place. All right? Just a short time after these events happened, Jesus himself, he kind of talks about, this. And it's when he talks about the sheep and the goats. And you could look at it like teams. I mean, there's these two teams. Jesus is going to divide us all up into two teams. And he talks about this. And he says that he'll have this one group, and they are the sheep. And these are his true followers, right? They have done all of these things in my name. And he says, but then there's this other group that I'm going to say, I don't know you. And before he, I think even reluctantly, cast them off into their eternal place, it says that the goats are going to say, but Jesus, wait. We did all these things, too. We went to church and we prayed and we did this and we prophesied and we taught in our Sunday school and we did all of these different, things. But see, these people are just fans. Yeah, they served Jesus at times. They also served a whole lot of other gods at times. They never made Jesus the one. It's like that football fan. They wave the flag when the teams win, and then they go out and they buy the shirt, and they cheer them on. But they never really commit. They know deep in their heart, as soon as this team loses, I'm out. Right? They were only Jesus fans when things were good, when things were like easy. Because there are times, look, I'm going to tell you, I know some of you, and it breaks my heart. I know that there are some of you here that have really struggled this year, and I know it's because of me. I know that I have thrown so many changes at you, and I know that that's hard. And I hope that you know that I'm also praying for like you, and I'm trying to help you with it and guide you there. But you ain't left. You're committed, right? But there are people that are not that way. They are just fans. And that same thing happens with, Christ. He doesn't promise you an easy life. As a matter of fact, he promises you, the only thing he guarantees you is a hard life. He promises you a perfect eternity. But he says on this earth there will be trouble. And a lot of people, when things get hard, they're out. But the goats get sent to that alternative, to heaven. And when Jesus gathers the sheep and the goats, where will you be? Because here's the thing, you get to make a choice. As of now, you still have a choice to pick your team. But the day will come when you don't have a choice. Because it doesn't say that Jesus is like, okay, guys, world's ended. It's time to get your team. No. By that time, he says, I'm placing you now. Based on how that you lived, I will put you on the team. So when Jesus gathers us all, will you be on the sheep team or on the goat team? If you would, please, let's stand. You know, it's not really a complicated thing. The choice is really simple. You either choose God or you don't. Some of you might be standing, there, and you've never been, saved. And if you're feeling like, Preston, there is something happening, I don't understand, but something, I'll tell you what that is. That's a war. That's a war going on inside of you. That is Satan and that is God, and they are fighting. They are fighting for you. And I know Satan will give you every excuse in the book to not make a choice for Jesus. That's the thing. He don't care. You can choose anything else. Choose to say, I'm going to wait till I'm a little older. I'm going to wait until this. I'm going to do this first. Satan's like, yes, anything you want. Because there's only two options. You accept Jesus or you don't. And I'll even dispel some of those, because I can remember at times I would feel convicted. And there would be all these thoughts going on in my mind, like, man, if I go up to that altar, everybody's going to be laughing at me. Look, I don't know about any place else, but I know here that ain't the case. If you haven't been saved, I'll tell you this, for once in your life, shut Satan up and come up here and give everything you have to Christ. You can give him all your problems, all your worries, all of your fears, and he will gladly take them. Now, some of you may not, or some of you may have been, saved, but it's been a long time since you've been a follower. You've kind of drifted into the fan side. You've been kind of going through all of the motions, but you haven't really felt Jesus in your life in a long, time. And I would tell you to come to the altar now. We can rededicate your life. Maybe you've even questioned, did I ever really get, saved? We'll handle all of that. Now, maybe you are saved. And you are a dedicated, loyal follower of Jesus. I have a challenge for like you. I want you to get somebody that is not saved, somebody that maybe you are concerned about, someone who has lost their way, and I want you to bring them to church. I don't mean bring them to church someday. Bring them to church 1 week from today. That is my challenge. And I was telling Ashlyn, because I said, I hope everybody will invite someone. I said, wait, that's the wrong word. You can start by inviting them, but if that doesn't work, then beg them, bribe them, pay them, I don't care, get them here, right? And if you're on the fence about Christ, just remember, you're not actually on a fence, you're on Satan. But I would ask you to please come back next week as we finish this. Whatever need that you have, please come to the altar, because that is exactly where you can get that need met.